Welcome to the Spiritual, Sexual, Shamanic Podcast. Exploring sacred sexuality, activating life force, and empowered transformation, these intimate conversations take you under the sheets with faculty from ISTA, the International School of Temple Arts. I'm your host, Ria Yoshida, faculty and organizer with ISTA. Welcome to the Spiritual Sexual Shamanic Podcast. Today, as always, we have a very exciting guest, Triambika Ma Vive. So Triambika is lead faculty with ISTA, and she sits on the governing circle of ISTA. I'll read her bio, and then we'll dive deep into the topic today, which is activating with toning. So Triambika is a soulful sexuality coach and founder of the Ecstatic Awareness Institute. Triambika has been featured on Playboy TV, oh, I didn't know that, and on the cover of Raw Attraction magazine. She teaches spiritual sexuality globally, helping men and women to heal, gain confidence, learn to have extraordinary sex, and create healthier relationships overall. We definitely all need this. A natural facilitator, Triambika brings her depth, intuition, passion, and magnetism to her work. She's a lead facilitator with the International School of Temple Arts and the co-creator and lead of the ISTA practitioner training, offering paramount trainings for sexual healing practitioners throughout North America, Israel, Australia, and Europe. Harnessing her extensive training and practice with the time-honored tradition of Tantra, human sexuality, non-dual spirituality, masculine and feminine dynamics, NLP, and body-based modalities, including yogic therapy and bodywork, she helps her students to reach authentic sexual freedom, to form fulfilling relationships that support the highest expression of who they are. Welcome to the podcast, Triambika. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Yeah, so good to be here. Thank you.
Yes. So activating with toning, when I heard this topic, it really lit me up because I have a story that I'm completely tone deaf. So for those of you who are listening and watching right now, if you've ever felt this way, let's get the transmission from Tree to really, open this up for us. So tell us about activating with toning.
Happy to. This is honestly one of my favorite topics because it is something that I use in my daily life. It is something that I practice. And so I'm walking my talk on this one a lot. And it is also a tool that I use to work with healing and guiding clients and supporting them. And essentially, what are we activating? We're activating our life force. Yeah. So, and what is the life force? The life force is that vibratory energy that's moving through us all the time, whether we're thinking about it or not. And so when we are attuned, choosing that word purposely, when we are attuned and attuning with what's going on in the inner world of our being, we are able to connect more deeply with our soul. So it's like, you don't go in our school and in what we do, right? You don't need to go outside of yourself to go find source divine, right? Actually, when we go in and we tune in to those parts of ourselves, even the parts that don't feel so good, the parts that we don't like so much, and the parts that feel yucky and like, oh God, the last thing I want to do is acknowledge that part of me. Right? And so actually going in and doing work to connect with those parts of ourselves. Now that's the work, right? Is starting to make those touch points with the parts of ourself that are sometimes in the unconscious, sometimes they're in the shadow, and sometimes they're just simply things that we have denied about who we are. All of that is you as divine. And we miss that, right? We think, oh, I'm bad, I'm wrong, there's something wrong with me, right? So this is kind of like a little bit of background of like how you could use this. Why do we want to activate our life force with toning? So when we start to feel those feelings where we're feeling a bit lower on ourselves, or we're not just feeling we're just not feeling optimal in who we are, we could begin to feel like we're less than the divinity that we are, right? Like I'm not worthy of, of being recognized as divine, as one with all. And so we sort of shrink and we contract and we tighten. Yeah, we kind of cinch down on who we are, and we diminish our voice, we diminish our being, our expression, our allness. And so when we tone, and when I'm speaking about toning, I'm literally talking about using sound, right? Vibrating the vocal cords and expressing through them. And I'll tell you all about how we can do that a few ways. By making sound, we are literally creating space in places in our body that are otherwise contracted. And so we contract a lot in life, right? We contract and our defenses come up and our emotions come up, and we don't even recognize just how much contraction we're holding. Not physically is one way, but also emotionally. And so sounding will open up the space. And if you think about it from the throat chakra perspective, and how each of the chakras are related to an element, right? So like the earth is related to the root chakra, water is related to the second chakra, and so forth and so on. So when we get up, to the fifth chakra, we're now relating this to the element of ether or space, right? So instantly you have an opening of spaciousness in your being. Hence, the life force can begin to flow. Yeah? Toning is, it's very confronting for people. It's very confronting for people to make sound or to be heard in a way that isn't simple, just like conversational speaking. So even in one's own private space, it could feel a little confronting. And now I know that there are a lot of amazing beings out there that sing, right? And singing is wonderful. It's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful craft. I love singing. It makes me happy. It makes other people happy, right? It's an awesome tool. And so this is kind of like that, but different. So a lot of times people think about, when I instruct my clients or my students to start toning and start working with sound. And again, I'll explain more of this, but they think, oh, well, I can't sing. Like you said, like, I'm tone deaf, or I don't have, no, I can't keep a rhythm. And it has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with, when we talk about like making harmony in music, it's actually more like harmonizing with ourself, right? Harmonizing and aligning our own being, our body, our emotions, our spirit, right? Bringing all those into harmony. And toning supports us to do that so beautifully. So beautifully.
So brilliant. Yes. What's coming up for me is, it's so easy to like hear our own voices in our heads. Mm-hmm. But then there's a gap between actually expression out loud versus what we hear. So there's this gap of like the inner world and the outer world in that expression. And so I really hear this being a powerful tool to bridge that gap.
Yes, I love that you just said that. That's such a great way to express it, Ria. Like to bridge the gap between the inner, what you're hearing and you want to be able to say, and the gap between actually getting it out. Yes. And and getting it out isn't always like, it's like we're not always ready to come forward with what we want to say to people, right? Or to the world. We're not always ready to come. Obviously there's that gap that you said. And so beginning to work with sound and tone, exactly, it starts to open that channel. right? And it's a channel of expression. It's a channel of release, and it's a channel of aligning. So we're getting to tune in, as I was saying in the beginning, is that, you know, we're tuning in sometimes to like, oh, this place, like I just can't get the words out, or I don't know what's going on. I'm not feeling so great. Well, what if you gave that a sound? Whatever that emotion is, identify it first, what's going on, and then just give it a sound and see what sound comes out. Because if it's the wrong sound, you're going to know it right away. You'll know right away, like that's not right. But let me just back up a little bit, because there's like I was saying, it's confronting to get to this place for some people. So what I recommend is that a person, anybody, any one of us who wants to begin to work with tone, to begin by humming. And humming is probably the safest way to start activating the vocal cords. And so there's just a really important piece here, is that as we begin, it's really good to remember to let your vocal cords vibrate with sound that you can hear all the way through to the end of your breath. So a lot of times I'll say, okay, make a sound. And somebody will say, you know, like, okay, well, that's a start. Let's actually vibrate that all the way through to the end of the breath. And so with humming, we're going to keep the mouth closed, so it's not intimidating to have your mouth wide open in front of somebody else, or, you know, just even for yourself. And take a deep breath and hum all the way through. You could go for a long time, right? Yeah. And so I would encourage anyone who's listening to actually try that. Like, pause the video and try that for at least 3 breaths, 3 to 5 breaths, where you're just toning with a hum, and just notice what happens. Yeah. You'll notice for yourself what happens. Anyone else listening will notice for themselves. I'll tell you what I notice. I notice that I begin to relax more. I notice that I begin to create an intimacy within myself that wasn't there a moment ago. I'm able to just sort of tap in a little deeper to sort of feeling more balanced in my being, right? And then I could take actions to create more balance or integration in my life. But that just starts to align me. Yeah. Let me know if you want me to continue, if you have a question, because there's more.
Yes, definitely want to hear more. What I notice also is in the humming, the chest physically vibrates, and then it opens up the channel to the 4th chakra, which is the heart. You know, and that really opening that esophagus, it's like a physical experience for the soul to come online.
Yes, I love your perspective on this. You're adding a lot to this, Ria. I love it. Yeah, and there are specific tones for each of the different areas of, you know, and vortices of the body. We can call them chakras, but they're also just areas where energy concentrates. And so, I mean, this can be such an elaborate teaching. And I'm such a huge, and I do actually teach that, by the way, particularly in our practitioner training, like we get really deep into that. But I find that simplicity wins, right? It's like if you are just getting started with wanting to find more of your power, wanting to connect more with your true power. Yeah, not some sort of blown up version of you that's like, you know, ego, or, but like the power that is within you, that is aligned and connected with all that is, that power. This is such a beautiful way to go, right? And so the humming is a start. The next level to this would be to start working with vowel sounds. Yeah. And so I'll just give that one away because you mentioned the heart, right? Where the ha, ah, as in a, but ah, right? A soft a is ah, and a little h at the beginning. So we can try that, and I'll just go ahead and do that now. So we'll all just take a deep breath. And at the heart, really feel that. Feels so good. Yeah. 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 So I encourage people to play with all the vowel sounds and make that a practice, and then go freestyle and just mix it up and do whatever you like, right? Do all the sounds that want to come through you, and just notice how you feel, right? How liberated you feel after that.
Really opening. It feels so good. I imagine when you said, finding that intimacy, that inner world, bridging the gap, really allowing the soul to come out.
Mm-hmm.
It's so brilliant, and what comes up is, what gets in the way is the ego or the personality, wanting to look good. These are all the pieces that definitely get in the way. And I imagine, for an extroverted personality, a lot of times extroverts want to speak and they hear themselves say something and then they're like, oh, that wasn't quite right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas an introvert likes to stay inward, a little more quiet perhaps, and doesn't necessarily vocal it out loud. And then once they feel connected to what their truth is in their inner world, then they say it something out loud. Just a dualistic, simplistic approach here. But I imagine that through toning, through these practices, that doesn't even matter anymore. It's like, this is beyond the personality.
Yeah. Oh, so much. So much. Yes. I really consider this more of a spiritual practice. And the personality is just kind of sometimes what gets in the way. It's what gets us in trouble, that then we have to go do the work to kind of clean it up. Yeah. And so, and on that note, exactly, as I was saying before, there's that, what I was mentioning about when you have a feeling. So this was the practice, right? So humming and then working with vowel sounds all the way through to the end of the breath. That's a simple practice to just do that and then go freestyle. Now going to the next level in is, as I was saying before, about working with whatever feelings are there and giving sound or giving tone to that feeling. And then don't just stop with one breath. Keep going and continue to express. And in the process of expressing, there's something that's happening that is, it's like a transmutation, right? The dense, heavy, contracted feeling starts to transmute, right? As we are releasing it through sound. And it starts opening up our channel so we can start feeling more connected. We can start feeling more whole. And as we move and allow that sound to come through, and the heaviness and the intensity and the growl and whatever it is, and we continue to allow that sound to move through us, we start to connect. And I would support anyone who wants to really try this. We start to connect that channel with who we are beyond our limited idea of self, who we are beyond our personality. And we start to notice that the toning that's coming through us starts to shift on its own. It starts to change, it starts to alter itself, because we're now attuning. Kind of cool, huh?
It's really cool. It's giving like a felt sense in the body of trusting, curiosity, and discovering, like this fullness of sense of self. And for a lot of people there are some people in the world who hear sound and apply a color to it. Right? So we have these cross sections of different senses, sight and sound, and it's all, you know, in our face, right? Really close to our brain to have the sight, sound, smell, and taste, like all kind of here in the center. So with tuning, it really brings everything online. And it kind of creates this felt sense. It's like I mean, I happen to be a visual person. So for me, it's very visual to hear sound, you know, but I imagine for someone who's a sound person that it comes in a deeper resonance. What about you?
Yes. Well, and I happen to know it's true that, you know, for a lot of people and for actual musicality, there is color often applied to sound, and it's a fascinating science, a fascinating study, and I think I'm probably more of the kinesthetic feeler type, and I start to feel the resonance, I start to feel the vibration, I start to feel the opening, the relaxation, the ease come over my body, or the intensity build as I bring sound to something that was kind of hidden from me before, and it starts to amplify. And that aspect of feeling all of it, what's the saying? It's really cute. You got to feel it to heal it. You do. And it's true. And this is what we do in ISTA, right? We feel a lot. and so it's bringing attention to the deeper places of feeling and emotion that are oftentimes even hidden from us.
Yes, so good. And I love what you said earlier, that this is a practice that done is better than perfect.
Absolutely.
Right? And to really practice, to really be with it, and that's really beautiful. And I also love what you said
There's nothing
earlier.
perfect about this. That's the thing, right? There's nothing perfect about it.
Yeah. Beautiful, great. And I love what you're talking about, that all of it's divine. Even especially the parts that we don't want to look at, that we don't want to address, that we don't really want to feel, the part that really says, oh no, not this part. And what it brings up is almost like a lot of the saga or the story in like Greek mythology, like all these gods get jealous or they have like affairs, like they make it very human. And then, you know, you bring in kind of like you know, Christianity or religion now, that's very very different images of what we think God is, right? And this is all the knowledge that we're bombarded with when we grow up, especially on the Western side of the world. And what you're saying is like, hey, all of it's divine because you are divine.
Yeah. And this practice, or these practices, help you remember that. Yeah. What I find is, you know, all the tones are really supportive. And as we start to move into higher pitched sounds, sort of like, right, where we're getting that higher pitch, we can start to feel that higher vibration that's connecting us. It's powerful work. And in a healing context, for example, when I'm working with somebody to support them in their own transformation, I don't need to teach them or tell them what sound to make. You know, I just like, I might make a suggestion, but they know, like you know, your body knows. Your body knows exactly what it needs to do. And that's why I said, if it's the wrong sound, you're going to know it. Like you'll know, no, that wasn't it. I was faking it. Or, you know, it's just like, that was my ego trying to make something happen. And that's not it. And so that's where that intimacy comes in, because you get really real with yourself. And self-expression is, across the board, self-expression is probably something that many and most people would like to have more of, right? Or be better at, right? Not everybody was born with that gift of being very fluid and self-expressed. And this is kind of to what you were speaking about. And so I feel like this kind of, in a sense, you could say like it's warming up. It's like warming up the throat, warming up the voice to begin to express yourself. And it's clearing the atmosphere that is what is holding back the expression to begin with.
Yes, beautiful. So you're saying that we're all, our soul is naturally expressed. It just is. It exists. And it's the human condition. It's the personality or the ego that really covers that up, or kind of like makes the soul become a contortionist and have to fit into these cultural boxes or whatever the boxes that get placed there.
Yes, it's an interesting concept to have the soul become a contortionist, but you know, we, without having the guidance from our soul and spirit, I believe that we are trying to fit into those boxes, right? We're trying to find where we fit and how we fit and how we want to express ourselves or market ourselves, you know, show ourselves to the world. And oftentimes it means, you know, leaning in and fitting into what, you know, what people are saying that you need to do, or people should do, you know, to fit in. I think that the real freedom is where we find who we are without the boxes. And that's really challenging to do because we live in a society, period. Not that we live in a society that ... but simply, you know, we live and we are tribal by nature. And so we want to fit in, we need to fit in because that's part of our makeup, right? Is to be able to fit in so that we can survive and we can have one another to depend on. But the unique expression is something that was often thwarted as a young child. So when we had the opportunity to find our unique expression, it was like, no, you need to sit down and be quiet like the rest of everybody else, you know? So at least that's what I was told.
Yeah, tell us about that, because the more personal, the more universal. And, you know, for you to be such an incredible teacher, you know, learning from you firsthand myself, I think it'll be really connecting for the listeners to really get, you know, how did you come to this tool in your journey?
Great question. Well, it's so funny because I was just I had this image of me come back to, I'm in third grade, and you know, they used to write your name on the board. If you were talking, like if you were talking in the classroom, your name was going on the board. And my name was always on the board, and then it would have check marks because I would continue talking. So I was that kid who who just had so much I wanted to say and didn't fit in. But fast forward a little bit. When I began my journey with Tantra, which has expanded so much even beyond that now, at this stage of my life, but in the early beginnings, which was, over 20 years ago now, I began receiving healing work. I began receiving sexual healing work. I began receiving work that was going to allow me to finally liberate the shame in my body, that allowed me to finally release the abuse that had occurred through a perpetrator. Like those intense things that were stored as traumas in my body were getting a chance to be released. And in a combination of touch, of presence, of loving presence, and breath and sound, this is where that healing started to happen, because there was a huge releases happening again and again and again. And so we always talk about breath, sound, and movement, right? That's common to Tantra, it's common to ISTA, it's common to so many schools. Breath, sound, and movement are the tools that can open into so many other directions. They're like seedlings that can branch out into so many other ways that we can heal and grow and expand and transform. But I really took to sound. Obviously, breath is part of sound. You have to take a breath, and I love movement. It's not that I've eliminated any of the other ones, but I really took to sound also because I appreciate it has this magical quality because of the element of space that it's related to. Right, for me, having felt so contracted earlier in my life because of numerous sexual experiences that had not served me early in my life, early in my teens and into my 20s. And I felt disempowered and I felt small and I didn't feel connected fully to my wholeness. It was by, working with these tools, breath, sound, and movement. And the sound in particular started to lift me out of my state. Lift me out of like a small state into, my bigness. And so whether that was through mantra or recitation of, some other chant or simply through toning, I began to use that as my practice. And I used it in my session work because I was working with people one-on-one. And it was amazing, like the results that I was getting, right? Where people's body were vibrating. And I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't trying to make anything happen. But I started to see people's body vibrating with the sound. And to encourage them to make sound was opening more in their body. And so it just began to just spread and open and open and open through, numerous sessions and work with myself. I mean, I don't know if that's enough of the background information. I'm happy to say more, but that's a little bit about how this started to grow for me.
Beautiful. Really got it. Yes. I love that. It's really creating space, especially when we feel small and contracted and inward or stuck or trying to fit in. Creating more space. Like I've heard this saying where we need physical space to think, and how much our environment impacts us, how we are tribal, how we do want to fit in. And we're not saying there's anything wrong with the ego, wrong with the personality. That's not at all what's happening here, but it's about creating space for the soul to really come through.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Beautiful. Yeah, totally got it. Anything else you'd like to say about this before I jump into some quick fire questions?
Oh, I'd love your quick fire questions.
Great. Awesome. Great. So just in like 5 words or less, let's see if we can get through these, as many as we can. In just a few words, you mentioned it earlier, but what does freedom mean to you?
It's funny. So I just have to say that just as I felt freedom in my body by saying the word, orgasm came up.
Yes.
But not and just an orgasm, orgasmic. Freedom means it's a release of tension. It's essential. It's true power.
Yes. Great. All right. If you were a piece of furniture, what would you be?
I think I have this vanity in my room, and it's like from the 1930s, and it's beautiful antique, handles and this nicely shaped and this great shaped mirror. I think I'd be a vanity. Does that sound so vain though? But I just think I love that place where you sit down to go and tend to yourself, to go and find your connection with yourself, right? And I love that. So I've never been asked that question.
Beauty is spiritual. Absolutely. So good. What are you reading right now?
I'm reading this book. It's called The Birth of the Conscious Feminine. And it's by Dr. Lenore Murciano. I just happen to have it right there, A New Era of Feminine Sovereignty. And I'm just loving this book. Loving it. And she's also one of my teachers right now.
Beautiful. What did you eat for dinner last night?
Last night I had cod and broccoli. Simple.
Yum.
Fish and veggie.
Yum. When is your favorite time to make love?
In the morning. Hello. In the morning. Or before like 3. The earlier part of the day is the best. Most energy is there. It's the most vibrant time. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Same. Yeah. Especially right after coffee, before breakfast, like on an empty stomach, but kind of like caffeinated if you do caffeine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. What are you currently really learning to embody or understand more deeply in your own practice?
What I'm currently learning to embody more deeply, I mean, I'm just in this work right now with the work of the divine feminine. And it's interesting how it goes in layers in our life. Like there's been a lot of work in this area in my life at other times, but I'm hitting a change of season in my own life, in my own being, that this work of the conscious divine feminine is hitting another level of wisdom in me. It's like it's revealing a new level of wisdom in me.
Beautiful. What has been, if you could, the single most impactful thing in your spiritual journey?
The single most impactful thing in my spiritual journey. Wow. Okay. The thing that came to mind just now, it's not going to be 5 words or less, but I spent many years with a guru in a tantric Kashmiri lineage, and that was not the most impactful thing. It was the day that I left, and I didn't even know that I was leaving all of it behind. I just stepped away from a retreat that we were at, and I said, this isn't for me right now. And I went into retreat by myself for a month. I was alone for a month and did the practices that came to me, the yogas that came to me, the journaling every day, just like really just being in in my feminine in such an intuitively guided way. That month of my life was the single most like shifted everything.
Powerful, powerful. Great. Well, those are it for the quickfire questions. I'm wondering, I know how powerful it is to find our own tuning and to really express that, but is it also healing to hear someone else's tuning when it's really connected to soul?
Oh, so much. So much. And that's exactly, you know, with the healing work, what happens is to be able to be that for another, right? To harmonize with another and allow their system to come into vibrancy through your own toning or somebody else's toning, and also with instruments, of course. You know, we all know about the power of sound healing. So voice, instruments, it's like, you know, we're not just physical beings, right? We know this, right? We know we're energy beings, we're vibratory beings, we're moving in a we're moving, like, you know, sort of like in an orbit, like the moon orbits, like the earth orbits, like the way that we orbit. And we have our own sort of inner orbit. And when we can kind of get in the right track, because a lot of times life gets us off, when we can get on the right track of our own inner orbit, we succeed in life. We flourish, we flow. And I find that toning and sound healing are all ways that bring us back into that right vibration with self.
Yes, you heard it directly. So how can people find you if they want to work with you, especially around this?
Thank you. So my website, which I think you'll probably post, is Triambika Ma Vive, Triambika KAMAVIVE.com. And right on that front page, you can book a consultation. So this is my gift to you and anyone listening, is go ahead and go book that consultation. It's absolutely free. Fill out the form. Let me get to know you a little bit on that form. And then we'll schedule some time to talk. Absolutely free. And it would be my gift to you, and it'd be my honor to get to know you better on our call.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for blessing us with your toning magic. And obviously you are a woman of so much more. We have to have you back on so we can go deep into another beautiful learning.
Thank you. I would love that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Blessings. Thanks for listening to the Spiritual Sexual Shamanic Podcast. To find out more about ISTA's retreats, online festivals, or to work with our faculty, see our website, ISTA.life, or find us on Facebook at ISTA.life and on Instagram at ISTA_tribe.